Hey guys, thank you for coming. Albert Einstein, Susan Boyle, Daryl Hannah, Dan Aykroyd, and Mozart. All these people were famous in their own time, but they all shared a common trait. Who here can tell me what that is?
They're famous.
They have awesome hair.
They're dead.
Wrong. They all had a common trait called Asperger's syndrome. Now, who here knows what Asperger's is?
I don't.
You know, a little bit.
A little.
Well, here's what is not Asperger's. Over the years, there have been common myths and misconceptions about what Asperger's is. It is not a mental disorder. It is a disorder, but it is not mental. People have had the misconception that since the word syndrome is in the phrase, that it is a disease and therefore is a cure. That is not true. It is not a disease, therefore there is no cure. People have classed Asperger's people as inferior and defective. Again, a complete lie. Just because this is a disorder does not mean that they're any inferior or defective than everyday people. Finally, Aspies, people with Asperger's, are not violent or crazy. Since the Sandy Hook shooting 4 years ago, people have been under the misconception that people with Asperger's are completely insane. But there is absolutely no guarantee that the shooter at Atlanta actually had Asperger's. Therefore, it is not clear. Now, what is Asperger's syndrome? First, it is an autism spectrum disorder, a neurological condition, mind you, a kind of high-functioning autism. If you look here, you can see a complete difference between the brain of an NT, a neurotypical, and the brain of an Aspie. You can see a complete difference. An Aspie's brain works differently from the brain of an NT. Basically, Asperger's syndrome is impaired social skills. The disadvantages of Asperger's syndrome are simple. Number one is social interaction. Aspies have a very difficult time actually communicating physically with people. Emotional problems. Aspies tend to be very, very emotional. They let their emotions get the best of them, especially when they are in a state of frustration or depression. Sensory issues. People with Asperger's, tend to be a little fidgety. They have very sensitive hear, sight, and taste, and feel. Some examples of some sensory issues are that they are very sensitive to bright lights, very sensitive to loud noises, and they have an overwhelming fear of being in crowds. A fourth one is repetitive behaviors. Aspies tend to do things repeatedly, like shake their hands, or walk around in circles, or talk to themselves. There are many repetitive behaviors. The next two are very important. Struggle to understand social cues. People with Asperger's have a hard time understanding what society thinks, how it acts, and what to do. The the inability to understand other people's actions, words, and behaviors. People with Asperger's have a hard time understanding others, especially when those people don't state exactly what they mean. For example, if somebody told me to get a job, but they were actually joking, I would not understand that. People with Asperger's tend to be very literal in all things. Next, there is dislike to change in routine. People with Asperger's form a daily routine, and they stick to it. If there is any change to that routine, they do not handle it well. For example, if a person lives in a very, very messy apartment, and he's used to it, but if the apartment is cleaned, and he does not even realize where he is, and he does not like the change in his comfort zone, he cannot handle it well. Lastly, there is anxiety. As a famous mathematician said, because of my lack of confidence, I am terribly afraid of upsetting others without realizing it or mean to by saying or doing the wrong thing. The thing about Asperger's is not knowing what people are thinking. Also, it's not knowing what to say or what to do in unfamiliar situations, and that can create tremendous stress and anxiety. And they tend to react in a strange way. But the advantages of Asperger's are here. First, there is intelligence. As Dr. Blank Grossberg said, Aspies possess above average intelligence and generally have an area of great and compelling interest, whether it's words, math, music, sports, science, art, or animals. However, people with Asperger's often struggle with sensory issues and other things. Basically, people with Asperger's can be very intelligent. Most of the people that work at NASA probably have Asperger's. Second, there is honesty. As I stated before, Aspies take things literal, but they are very honest. They don't get jokes because they always believe in honesty. I have never known another person with autism that would lie. Third, there are interests. A person with Asperger's expands his interests, and he sticks to that interests, whether it's music, math, science, sports, anything. A neurotypical would call it an obsession. But to an Aspie, it would be considered normal. Lastly, there is talent. Talent is based on imagination. If you look at the people I showed you in the beginning, Albert Einstein, Mozart, Susan Boyle, Dan Aykroyd, they all have lots of imagination. And they use that imagination to do what they love. Overall, people with Asperger's may be socially awkward at first, but in the end, they do turn out to be very friendly and nice. People with Asperger's want contact with other people very much. We're just pathetically clueless at it, that's all. Any questions, comments, jokes? Thank you.
That was awesome. Let's see. Here's the crowd. man.